All right, welcome. So after I did my Servoy World presentation on how to deploy your Servoy application with Docker, I've gotten lots of feedback and people wanting a little bit more detailed tutorials, specifically on how to use some of the server tools. So as they start to understand the concept of the Docker files, they want a little bit more help with how to actually get a server up and running with Docker and how to really do the full A to Z deployment. So I decided to make a video. We're actually going to start completely from scratch, making some new accounts and deploying completely from scratch. Okay, first things first, we're going to need a place for our source code. In this demo, I'm going to use Bitbucket. And the reason I'm going to do that is because for your source code, you might have some private files. Maybe there's some things in your property files or some plugins or stuff that you really don't want to be completely open source with and public to the world, and maybe you're not paying for a GitHub account. So we're going to use Bitbucket just because it makes things nice and simple. So over on Bitbucket, we're going to get started for free and create a new account. And I'm going to use my Servoy Guy account. And let's continue. Okay, so I need to go over and confirm my account. And we'll give myself a username here. So we bitbucket.org/servoyguy. And we're in business. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a new repository. And I'm going to call this one Docker Demos. And I'm going to leave this private, so this means that other people are not going to be able to see this. This is a good, probably a good example of what you'll be doing when you set yours up. All right, and so now I'm using Bitbucket. Has a nice little web interface. If you're comfortable with Git, you could download your favorite Git tool to check this out and do your source control changes from there. But they do provide an actual built-in GUI through the browser where we can do this. So we're going to go ahead and do that for now. And to do that, we're going to click over on Source. And it looks like we needed to get started here, so we're going to say, let's get started the easy way. So we'll create a README. And we'll just kind of create a basic one here. All right, so I've kind of initialized the repository. Let's go back to my source, and let's create another new file. Now for this, we're actually going to place it inside of a folder so we can do maybe a few different demos down the road. So we'll do demo1/Docker file. So each of your files are called a Docker file, and that's where your all your source goes. And in order to figure out what kind of source we're going to place in here, we're going to go over to our little demos here. So these are linked from the main Docker Hub account, and these are what we went over in the presentation at Servoy World. So we've got two main ones you can deploy from here, the Servoy-based one or the Tomcat-based one. And then down below are some examples. So let's scroll down to the Tomcat-based one. And here we have a war deployment to a cloud-hosted database. So let's click on that one and take a look there. So this is a good example of something you might use to get started with yours. So let's use that as our starting point here. So let's come over and paste that in. And let's switch this up a little bit. So we're going to start by extending the shared one. So there's a public one out there that's available for everybody to extend, and that's going to give us a core Tomcat one based on Oracle Java. And the maintainer is going to be us, but we're going to switch that to our new email here that we're using. And we've got our war context here that's going to default to Servoy, and I'm fine with that. And then we're going to add our war file. So we need to figure out where our war file is going to be. Currently, I've got one hosted out here on the Servoy Guy website. You'll need to generate your own war file and upload it wherever you want to place that, and then retrieve that with an FTP command. Or in this example, you can see I'm using wget. Okay, and then lastly, I've got my command here. Now I could leave this empty. I could take this out completely, and it's just going to run the default command. So it's going to run the parent one, or I could just leave that in here. That's fine. So let's go ahead and hit commit. Okay, so when I go back to my source, I can see I've got a folder called demo1, and in there I have this Docker file that's going to pull from the Tomcat Oracle one, and it has my war context there, and I have my run and my command. All right, so next up I need to get this thing into an image, and the easiest way to do that is to head on over to Docker Hub. So let's get ourselves an account here. And let's sign up. There we go. All right, so now that I'm here in Docker Hub, what I want to do is link my Bitbucket account to my Docker Hub account so it can automatically pull that source code and generate the image for me. So let's figure out where we do that at, probably in my settings and linked accounts and services. And there's my link Bitbucket. I'm already logged in, so I can just go ahead and say yes, grant access. Perfect. All right, I'm going to go back to the dashboard. And let's see if, now that it's linked up, if I can go ahead and hit create and create what they called an automated build. And it's going to automatically, since I've linked it with my Bitbucket, it's going to see my Servoy account. There's our Docker demos. And I have the ability to make it public or private. Now, Docker Hub, you get one free private option. You have to pay a small amount if you want more. So I'll call this demos. And I'll hit create. Well, actually, we'll change this so that it's just demos. There we go. Okay, so we've got Docker pool, servoyguy.com/demos. Now, if I head on over to build settings, by default, when you do the link, it wants it to automatically do builds for you every time you do a push. Now, personally, I just don't like that. So I come in and I uncheck the box. And I like to just kind of manually configure that. So what you're going to do is specify what the mapping is. So the master is the branch, and then your Docker file location. Well, you might remember if we come over to our location here, it's in demo 1. There we go. And let's go ahead and save that. And let's see if we can trigger a new build. All right, it says it triggered it. So now we'll come over to build details, and it says it's working on it. Okay, now that takes a minute or two, and I just periodically refresh the page, and assuming everything went well, it should say success, and you can click on it, and it'll load, and it'll show you your build. You can see it pulled in that Docker file, and it went through and it executed it, and you can kind of see the log as it went through and pulled everything down and did the actual build and built your image. All right, so now we actually have an image. So let's see if we can deploy this image. So let's head over to Docker Cloud. And let's sign up. Okay, looks like I don't even need to create a new account. It should automatically have me linked in. Oh, good, it does. Okay, so as soon as we log in, you'll notice there's a little toggle in the upper left here for swarm mode. For those of you that were at Servoy World may remember the several sessions discussing the orchestration layer of Docker, where you could take one container and spin hundreds of it up automatically. Kubernetes was one of them. There's various different options there. Docker Swarm is the same concept. We're going to turn that off for now just to keep things simple, and we're just going to deploy a couple of containers on our own. So let's turn that off. All right, so with that turned off, we get some new options over here on the left. And the first thing we're going to do is go into Cloud Settings. Let's go ahead and toggle that so we can see what these are. So under Cloud Settings, what we first need to do is link Docker Cloud to our cloud provider. So Docker Cloud is sort of like a web-based GUI tool that will automatically connect to several different cloud providers and handle spinning up servers and installing Docker and deploying your Docker containers into that cloud provider for you without you having to get in there and doing any command line work. So let's go ahead and use a simple one. Amazon Web Services is a little bit more complicated to set up. There's a few steps, but it does have a nice tutorial, and it walks you through how to do that. And the way you do that is just clicking the Connect Provider, and there's a tutorial that it'll walk you through. For this demo, we're going to use the simpler one, which is the DigitalOcean. So let's go ahead and click on that, and it's going to walk us through logging in to our DigitalOcean account. And I've already got one, so I'm just going to go ahead and log into it. Okay, and you can see it's all linked up there. So it was as simple as that, and now I can go ahead and create a new node. So what the node is essentially an actual, think of it as the actual infrastructure hardware. So I need a server to actually run this stuff on. So let's go ahead and hit create, and I can give it a name. I'll call it Demo 1, and we'll choose DigitalOcean as our provider, and we can choose a region. We'll do, how about New York 3, and we get to choose a type and size. So I'll choose something about like that, so a 2 gig server. And I could choose how many of those nodes I want. I'll get one node for free with Docker Cloud. If you want to go beyond that, there's some pricing options that you can take a look at. But for now, I'll just do one. So we'll hit Launch Node Cluster. And it is deploying. And if you were to log into your DigitalOcean account at the moment, you would actually see it spinning up a server within your DigitalOcean account. All right, and after about a minute or so, it should change to deployed, and then you know it's ready to go. So let's toggle this back out. So next we have our application. So you have stacks, services, and containers. So stacks are like the Docker Compose or the Docker Cloud YAML files that we showed in our demo. So that's where you want to spin up one or more things together in a pre-configured way. Or you could do like a service. We could just kind of do it manually. Or you could kind of manage just individual containers that were spinned up through those two prior items. So normally I would be using stacks because usually I'm spinning up like a Servoy server and a Postgres server, and I'm linking them together. And so you would hit create and you'd give it a name and you'd paste in that stack file. So just as a high level, to give you a reminder of what that is, let's go back to our README here in the documentation, and that's these files. So that's where you can just copy those in and paste them in, and it will deploy them. But in this example, we're actually just deploying this one, so we don't really have to do that. We can just come here and hit create, and we can click over to My Repositories, and we can see it's automatically linked that one that we've created here. So I can give this a little nickname, call it Servoy Demo 1, and there's lots of different options that you can choose here, but we're just keeping it simple since this is just a demo. So we're going all the way down, and we do need to publish the port 8080 so that it's publicly available, and we're going to make that available on port 8080 in the parent node as well. Otherwise, it would pick a random one or it would remain unpublished, so it would just be available inside the container and not externally. So let's keep going down, and that's good for now. So we'll hit create and deploy. All right, looks like it's starting. And according to that, it says it's running now. So I usually like to just take a look at the logs and see what's going on. So it looks like it's started up. Now Servoy is not officially up yet. So when it says started, that means that the container has made it up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all the services, or the main service, has officially completed starting yet. So we'll just take a look at this and wait until we see that it's fully up. All right, so it took it a couple more minutes. I have a remote database server. It's not too fast that I've got set up for this demo. And you can see it was able to connect to that and get up and running. So let's go back to General and take a look at this. And you can see there's a service endpoint and a nice little link there. So we can click on that and open it up. And there's our Tomcat server up and running. Now I can click on the Manager app and log into that. And I didn't override any of the default settings. So it's just going to use the default username and password for now. If you're unsure what those are, you can take a look at the Docker file and see that the default username is Tomcat admin, and that's the default password. So we'll go ahead and do that. And let's just check out what's there. So you can see it's deployed our Servoy container, and it's there and already running. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And there it is. So now let's look at Servoy-ng client. And there's our Servoy sample CRM. And there you go. Fully running on the cloud with Docker Cloud connected to DigitalOcean.